tracks to leadership and data science fireside chat, if you will. We're going to get started here in a minute, and we have some folks in the industry that you would all love to hear from. I would say that coming back in person has been electric. The energy out there is amazing, and just sort of meeting people, sharing ideas, and in this disruptive world of generative AI and machine learning and everywhere we've gone, I feel like we're definitely charting new waters. So let me take a minute to welcome everyone, my esteemed group of panelists. Hallie, let me start with you. Why don't you talk about your background and tell us all about you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Hallie Lukens. I am Director of Analytics Capabilities for Business Blueprint, small business products at American Express. I started my career, my educational background, I would say, is in health policy. And so I started in research, and then I went to work for a software company that had an electronic medical record product. And I first joined their team as a data scientist and then became the product owner for their data, their analytics product that sat on top of their electronic medical record system. And from there, I went to work for a large healthcare organization in Atlanta as a leader of their revenue cycle analytics teams. And now I'm at American Express. And my team at American Express is really in charge of data enablement for our other analytics teams and ensuring that our analytics teams and our partner teams have the necessary data they need to do their jobs. And we also manage our analytical layer as well.
Thank you. Frances, why don't you go next?
Welcome, everyone. So my name is Frances Boykin. I'm at AT&T, and I won't go back all the way through all of my myriad of organizations and roles, but what I will say is that I started in my telecom career back in the 1990s, and I've landed here at AT&T where I am Director of Advanced Analytics. I have a team that covers data engineering, analytics, and is also responsible for providing some NLP, some modeling, a little bit a mishmash there, but our goal ultimately is to provide information and insights around customer experience at AT&T. I will say that I decided that I was going to be in data when I was in the 8th grade. So I have been in data my entire life. It's what I love to do. So you're going to hear a lot of fun stuff from me around data as soon as you start talking data. So welcome, and I'm glad to be here.
Fascinating. Thank you so much. Faizan, why don't you go next?
Hey, folks. Hope you all are having fun at this great event. My name is Faizan Javed. I lead digital data science at Kaiser, the healthcare company. My team works on healthcare information retrieval, search, personalization, recommender systems, knowledge graphs, experimentation data science, data insights. And before Kaiser, I spent several years building and leading data science and engineering teams in different industries, all the way from finance, human capital management, HR tech, e-commerce retail, interactive agencies, and even governance SaaS product.
Great. Asit?
Hi, everyone. So I am Asit Sangode. I lead a data science team in Morgan Stanley for the wealth management division. So a little bit of background about myself. I'm a chemical engineer and an MBA. So I have no reason to be in data science, but I stumbled into it. So I can split my career into two parts. The first part was spent in credit card industry. I worked for American Express for around 12 years. I was building credit risk, fraud risk models. And after that, the second part of my career was spent in asset management industry. So first I spent 3 years in PIMCO, and now I'm at Morgan Stanley, establishing and leading data science teams. So if you attended today's first session where my boss Atul Dalmia spoke about how we are leveraging AI for Morgan Stanley. You would know some of the work that me and my team were doing. In summary, what we do is we enable financial advisor to drive their business. So, yeah.
Thank you, Sid. And Colin.
All right, hi everybody. So I'm Colin Coleman. I'm the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Inspire Brands. A lot of people haven't heard of Inspire. We are actually the second largest restaurant company in the States after McDonald's. So we own Jimmy John's and Dunkin' and Arby's, Buffalo Wild Wings and Sonic. I've been there a year and a half. Data and analytics there encompasses the full spectrum of everything the company does. Everything from financial forecasting, advertising spend, loyalty, through operations, even down to staff retention, operations of the drive-through, and even through data governance. I am not a person that grew up in the restaurant business. I've only been there a year and a half. I actually started my career at NASA, so all my degrees, including my PhD, are in aerospace engineering. I worked at NASA Ames out in California, and the dot-com boom helped me move over to a startup. So I did commodity trading analytics, supply chain analytics. I worked at Kaiser for 3 years. I ran all digital analytics across Turner Broadcasting for 10 years, and then Equifax for 8 years. So I've been in a bunch of different verticals.
Very impressive and diverse. And I can confirm, Colin did tell me that he didn't have anything to do with the Jimmy John sandwiches you all had for lunch. Let me sort of talk about myself. So I'm Ash Naseer. I'll be your moderator here today. I am the Senior Director of Data Engineering at Warner Brothers Discovery. My background is dual. So I come from a very technical data engineering, core engineering background. And about 10, 12 years into my career, I decided that I wanted to go back to school because even though I worked on solving business problems, I didn't feel like I had the right skills or sort of the lingo. So I went back to business school, got my MBA from Georgia Tech, and that was 10 plus years ago. And I really sort of found that intersection of technology and business really helped me sort of relate with the challenges that the business leaders have, and how does the technology and specifically data and data science sort those challenges out. Currently here at Warner Brothers, we're working with all sorts of very interesting challenges, everything from when movies get premiered to how do you sort of manage the windowing cycle, how do you sort of transition that into SVOD, that's when you can buy or rent a movie on your Apple device or Amazon Fire TV or things of that nature, and then from there, how do you sort of transition it to a streaming model, so a streaming app, which is Max. I'm sure a lot of you have had experience with that. So what's the right time for movies and series to sort of go through that progression? And then, at the tail end, in terms of DVDs, and then, licensing from TVs and international market and so forth. So we analyze and provide the data to make sure that we understand the entire life cycle and make sure that we make content which is really exciting to consumers such as yourselves. Okay, so we're going to be talking about leadership and how important that is. And let me just sort of start off with the question. Leadership means different things to different people. I will say that as Colin mentioned as well, sort of having that sort of multiple domain expertise has a value as well. Asit, I'd like to hear from your perspective, sort of what is the most important leadership aspect that you would think that is important for success? Is it staying within a domain expertise? Is it diversification? If you could talk about your story, that'd be great.
Speaking from my own example, right? I had a career in credit card industry and then moved on to asset management industry. But if you boil down the problems that you're trying to solve, there is a through line to it. There is a commonality into it. So the problems are very similar. Like, who are the clients? What is the value of the client? When will they churn out? Who can we cross-sell? Who can we upsell? Right? These are some of the problems that are similar across all the industry. Right? So if you think fundamentally on solving these problems, you can transfer the knowledge from one industry to other industry.
Yeah, very interesting. And Colin, going from NASA to Turner to Equifax, both in terms of sort of consumer-facing organizations and a company like NASA, which is all about building the next generation. How did you find that transition, and how did that help you?
Oh boy, how long was this talk? I would say that at my core, I probably have this natural curiosity about, even at NASA, it was all about how do you model the real world with data and analytics, whether that was computationally or flight testing, whatever. And that's the same common thread across all these different experiences. I learn something new, right? Like I'm learning so much at Inspire about the restaurant business, about operations, different aspects I haven't taken on. Some things I've been able to carry on, like direct-to-consumer, life cycle understanding, retention techniques, and so forth, kind of builds. And then as I get older, I think my objective function, right, what I'm trying to do is shifting as well. And so I'm learning more and more about the how, about how to interact at a senior level within an organization and how to mentor the team and how to grow the team. And perhaps I'm not focusing all my time on the technical side. So it's shifting. Nobody ever told me that, right, when I was younger, that you change over time and the kinds of things that you need to learn over time will change as well. So I think it helps to have a natural curiosity and to kind of keep challenging and just be open for new experiences.
That's fascinating. Faizan, let me just go to you here. As someone who is sort of really focused on the world of data science, and I would say specializing in that area, how have you felt like that has helped you from a leadership standpoint and making sure that you capitalize on all those skills that you've evolved over your career?
Yeah, so I think a key point in leadership is that, as you mentioned, this is a fast-moving industry, right? There are always new technologies coming in. So as leaders, I know that as you go higher up the chain, you get less hands-on. But we still need to be aware of what's possible and what's happening. So that takes care of the tech side. On the other side, in leadership, I would actually say that we have two different sections. First one is we have to make sure that we have the strategy and vision part set. That becomes more important the higher up you go, like Colin and others. And then the second part is that execution, value delivery, and people management. These parts become really, really important for leadership. And I think that's where the focus grows increasingly, even though we have to be aware of what's happening in the tech space, right? Because we can't just be project managers. We have to know what's possible, and the soft skill side becomes really important there.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of skills, right? I feel like the skill set evolution, we've all seen throughout our careers. I feel like when I started in this industry back in the 90s, it was, we were solving the similar kind of supply chain problems for, the Walmarts of the world and retailers and so forth. But we didn't call it data science. And now with Gen AI and everything else, if you had said to me a year ago, hey, here's this skill set called feature engineering, I would have just thought that you were from another planet, right? I mean, none of us had heard of it, and today that seems to be the hot skill. And Hallie, let me just sort of go to you and ask how you've evolved your skill set over the course of your career and how you sort of capitalize on that evolution.
Yeah, I actually would agree with Colin. One thing I did not anticipate earlier in my career is that, I would really kind of focus more on soft skill development and really kind of honing in on my communication skills and interactions with leaders on my partner teams and stakeholder teams to really ensure that my team was working lock and step with theirs to really solve their problems. And I do think there's a real skill to that has to evolve and be, honed over time. And that was really something I didn't anticipate earlier in my career.
Awesome. And Francis, from your perspective, just making sure that you're always working on, the problems that are valuable to the company. Can you talk about that and, what you've done at AT&T?
Absolutely. So at AT&T, of course, we have a large organization that has a myriad of issues that we are facing. And the really cool thing about data science, AI, and now generative AI is that we can leverage it everywhere across the organization. But as we start to look at how do we upskill our teams to be able to support that need. So not just support it from a perspective of building out the data science outputs, but also what are the inputs, what are the right inputs to have within our organization to make those outputs worthwhile. So looking at skilling up, one of the latest and the greatest, prompt engineering. I just heard about prompt engineering in the last 6 months. I'm all about it though, right? And we've also even seen there's an uptick in privacy regarding AI. So all of these skills have to be brought together so that we can build out the outputs that we need to be able to leverage them within our organization. So I know within my team, I'm pushing my team to skill up constantly. So I am doing another master's degree. So I did my undergrad in computer science, I did a master's degree, now I'm doing another master's degree at Georgia Tech in AI and analytics, and then I've already gotten my doctorate. So did I think, like Hallie said, back when I was in the 8th grade and decided I was going to be doing data, that I'd be going to school forever? I did not. But one of the things that we are seeing with data science is that, yes, it is constantly changing. We have to continuously upskill.
Yeah. And I also feel like you have to feed your curiosity, right, over this course. That's the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Asit, from your perspective, in a highly regulated industry, what are the kinds of skills that you found are really valuable and, companies like an American Express or Morgan Stanley are looking for?
Right. So I'm gonna quote a favorite quote of mine from Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence. Right. In a high IQ pool of talent, right? What stands you out is your ability to drive, your passion, and your empathy. So if you develop this soft skill, you will stand out. This is true on for all the leaders that I've seen who've been effective across multiple organizations that I've worked in, and I do want to follow this kind of skills. And going back to the upskilling question, right? One of a very good or very pithy advice that I received was behave like a brain surgeon. So why is that? So brain surgeons are extremely passionate about their career, and the reason is because their work is matter of life and death. So for being relevant, what they do is they are constantly reading research papers. They are constantly practicing newer operations, newer skills. They talk to their peers on interesting cases. They attend conferences like these and exchange ideas. So if you can model your behavior similar to brain surgeon, I guess you would set yourself for success.
I love it. Being a brain surgeon. I will say though, I love the sort of constant curiosity aspect of it, but the nice thing between us and brain surgeons is that we don't get called in at 1 a.m. in the night. So I do appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone here does as well. Colin, let me go to you and ask you about, through this path, that you've taken in your career, what are some of the challenges and obstacles that you faced, and what were your strategies in overcoming those challenges?
Boy, you're giving me the easy one, huh? There's a number, I think, just in terms of just learning the different domains and understanding the skills are constantly changing, right? So there's all of that. As I mentioned before, like learning the soft skills, that's a constant one as well. And I think there's the checking, I'll go philosophical, right? Checking back in with yourself. So no one's going to tell you what is right for you at a certain time of life and what feels good and what you're prepared to put up with or not. And so, I'll there was a couple of startups that I was in, they both hit the wall. I was at one company, we had a 20% layoff, I was part of it. My kids were both under 5, we just remodeled the house, right? And you start to kind of go, was leaving NASA the right thing? Because I was like, I could protect my technical corner, and I'm in this middle, like, am I doing the right thing? And so nobody ever talks about the points of your career where you're trying to figure out, or the low times, right? Or the points where you have self-doubt about, am I on the right path? Because you have that every single time. So I would say that's a constant, at least for me, a challenge of just kind of checking back in and going, am I being true to what I want to be doing? And is this the right mesh up? And therefore, for my team, it's the same conversation. I intersect with my team at their point of their journey of life. So what is it that they want to do? And is what we're doing at work meaningful for you on your journey? And where is that going to kind of take you? And I think that just kind of applies at all levels. I mean, everybody will learn the domains, we'll learn the skills, we'll learn the soft skills. But I think also checking back in about what's actually going to make you and your team happy is also important.
I love it, yeah. And I think you nailed it with checking in with yourselves, because I feel like we get so caught up in, what's the hottest skill of tomorrow, and, how do we sort of make sure that we're doing what's valuable, but making sure that checking in with yourself, with your teams, and making sure that you are aligned to where you want it to be. I think, I personally, I do find that doing it has always been very fulfilling, but we don't necessarily take that time. And I think you're spot on that making sure that you build that in your career life cycle is really critical. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's so interesting. Let me go to Francis and also talk about, as we talk about sort of skill sets and evolving the workforce, there's been a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion and making sure that, especially in the technology world, we're sort of catering to as diverse a group as possible. What are some of the strategies that you've taken to make sure that we're opening up this wonderful field of data analytics, data science to everyone out there?
Great question. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion and debate around diversity and inclusion, but for me, it's just making things available to everyone. And it's kind of that simple. It's easy for me. But one of the main ways that we're doing that, of course, now we have all of this open source, open AI. So that means that there's not that economic barrier to having access to these tools that back in the 90s we had. If you weren't in a specific organization, you may not have access to certain tools and applications. Now we have a lot broader ability to access these tools and applications for us as individuals. But one of the things that I'm focusing on is being here in these types of environments to impart whatever wisdom I can, but also to interact with others and try to bring them along on this journey that I've been on since the 1990s, and that's as far back as I'm going. But to bring them along. But the other thing is to reach out to the schools. I did KSU Analytics Day. I've done that every year that they've been doing it, and I spoke at the KSU Analytics Day this year. So taking my journey out and helping others who may not understand that this is a great opportunity for everyone, that this, what all of this whole thing, AI, data science, and the cool stuff that we can now do and how we tap into that. I've just been asked to be on the board of Atlanta Technical College, and one of the things that we're leveraging there is, hey, we need to bring data science into the technical colleges as well, where we have a lot of underserved folks who can also then be leveraged in organizations. I've had leaders come up to me and say, I don't get enough of folks that look like you in my pool of people that I can even bring into my organization. How do I do that better? And the one thing that I always tell them is that we're out here. You have to come to the schools, come to the events, open it up so that you have more of those folks that you're interacting with. And that's pretty much it. But I do know that just this morning I came to this conference from another conference, the Atlanta Business League. And it was all about women and bringing data science to women. So one of the conference workshops was an AI workshop. So there's a lot of things that we can do to just put the word out and then connect.
That's great. Yeah, I really think diverse perspectives matter as well, right? I mean, just, just hearing from someone who hasn't been part of this, let's just say this circle, and, hearing their perspective of how would they solve a given problem, because at the end of the day, in the world of data and data science, I mean, we are solving problems, right? And so folks that can bring that diverse perspective is really going to be key. Faizan, let me ask you this. In your career, how have you sort of brought in folks from diverse perspectives? How have you helped, bring in through some of these programs in what you've done?
Yeah, I think this is a really important area. And there is no single solution, so it has to be a multi-pronged solution. And I'll just give a quick overview of the different areas. First one, I think we want to start at the very beginning, right? We want to make sure that data science is part of STEM at the high school level. I see that at STEM, I know that my son is taking classes on robotics. Well, nothing against robotics, but I think it's a bit more niche than data science. So if we can have those Lego robots, those programming exercises, we can have data science. Moving on from that, next we have to go to the phase where it comes to where do you get the talent, right? In terms of recruitment. I know that historically tech, including data science, has been very focused on the big tech universities, right? Georgia Tech is of course in our background, but we still have to improve that expansion. I know that at my companies that I've worked at, I made an active effort to ensure that we go out to the historically, like universities and colleges which we didn't target previously. So we need to expand the pool to get the people in. That's the second phase. The third phase is where you already have people in your companies, right? And they may not have the skills. So this is where you may have this upskilling program inside your corporations, right? So because I know that we have to make sure that if you're at a company, it's more data-driven. That will actually increase the opportunities and positions that these people can move into. But they can only move into if they close the skills gap. Right? So we should have at this level, at the corporate level, upskilling programs, skill matching programs, so that people who are underrepresented can actually take these positions in leaderships or IC roles.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Let's turn our focus towards the strategic vision, right? I really feel like making sure that what we are doing in our day-to-day jobs, how it aligns with what our company's vision is critical. And Colin, let me start with you. In your career, give me a few, or maybe just even one example of where you have managed to align what you're doing and with where the company is going, and making sure that you put your group in their best spot.
Yeah, well, I would say, even if you look at what we're doing now at Inspire and the growth of all those brands across all the different activities that we're doing, and especially at this level, it's imperative that you really are exactly in sync with what the company is trying to achieve. And, as we get gauged by how we are assessed, we're still private, but, whether that's growth of revenue, or how we really squeeze mid P&L in terms of operational efficiencies, or how we support new stores, net unit growth. I mean, those are like the three things that we'll come back to. And so everything that we do as far as the vision of DNA, data and analytics, the initiatives that we are coordinating across the rest of our peer groups in technology, operations, the executive stakeholders, all has to be in sync. The list of things that we could take on, the list of things that we are attracted to go and take on is very long. The critical thing is to focus on what the company really needs, even if that pains you because you don't get to do your favorite little thing. But that's what's important for the company, and then you're trying to raise the capabilities of your organization so you can take on more the next go around.
Yeah, no, that's true, and making sure that you provide that focus as a leader to your group is key. Hallie, let me ask your perspective on this. How at American Express, how are you making sure that your group is focused on the high-value initiatives?
Yeah, I could not agree more with Colin. We do the same. We are very in tune with what our goals are, and ensure that our individual team goals align directly to our overall business goals. And I think it's really important to do frequent check-ins and make sure that you're remaining aligned and really tracking towards accomplishing the things that you set out to do as they align with those goals. I think it's really easy to get distracted by the newest, shiniest tool or skill. There are a lot out there to get distracted by, and I think you have to remain really laser focused on ultimately what you're trying to achieve and how those are driving the business.
Yeah, no, very nicely put. Thank you. Now let's also, I think, along with strategic vision, I really believe that communicating that vision is critical, and this is one I think you all would have some perspective on. But let me start with you, Asit. Right? How do you make sure? It's like we can all come up with really great answers when one of our C-level executives asks a question of us. But how do you make sure we ask the right questions? How do we sort of prompt that thinking? And what have you done in your career on that?
Right. So communicating with business partners is generally challenging, at least for the data science people, right? You speak Python, they speak jargon. So there is no common ground. So how do you recognize this difference and then work towards having a common understanding? And the common understanding comes from business metric, because those are common, right? You need to create a data science organization which is customer-centric, which is business-centric, which understand the top-line numbers which are relevant for the success of your company and different divisions. Then, are you enabling your team or yourself in translating those numbers into programs which will impact it, right? So that's a very important skill which we seldom overlook, and just go directly to the business and say that, hey, tell me your goal and we'll translate it into projects. It is very difficult for business stakeholders to give you a project. Hey, build me a model for improving engagement. The need for business is very, very implicit. It's a job of a data science leader to translate that implicit need into an explicit analytical problem and solve it and translate it back.
Yeah. Wouldn't life be very simple if they would give us on a platter, hey, here's the project, why don't you guys, do this? Sometimes it happens, right? I mean, sometimes there is that clarity. Francis, let me sort of get your perspective on it, right? At AT&T, how have you worked to communicate your vision with your business partners?
Ooh, that's a great question. I mentioned earlier just how big AT&T can be, and building those partnerships across organizations is key, number one. But we actually have alignment meetings that happen, let's say August, September timeframe for the coming year. So I have key partners, and I put together my list of projects, they put together their list of projects, and then we align those projects all the way back up, all the way up to our CEO. So our CEO creates their goals, and then that filters down, and then we build out our projects to that. Now, communicating back, okay, these are the priorities, and these are the projects that are past the sniff test, and that's a bigger issue, okay, because everybody has their priorities. But honestly, it does a lot of times come down to funding. So it's, how does the money align with those projects? And then we meet, we discuss, we collaborate, and we keep that going throughout the year. So for the most part, it's collaborative development of those goals, and then communicating them constantly throughout the development of those projects.
Yeah, the collaboration part, that is absolutely key. And Colin, I mean, we as data scientists, especially those of us that come from an engineering background, really get enamored by all this new tech that's out there, which is important, right? I mean, it has a place. But in your perspective, I mean, someone can be the most smartest engineer, build the most amazing product. However, if they can't communicate that vision, that doesn't really sort of help the company. So in your career, what would be your advice based on what you've done to folks out there that are looking to make sure that they hone those communication skills?
Yeah, I would say that was a wake-up call for me coming out of the corner of aerospace, where my communication was technical papers at technical conferences, and then going into a business arena and being faced with that. And so you kind of wake up really quick that the majority of the people you're working with are not technical. And if you start talking technical, you might as well be talking, some other language. So the ability to connect is so important. And if I can say, it kind of pissed me off, because I was like, man, I did all this work, on the technical side, but the ability to really communicate it and to connect with the business is the most critical thing. And so I've used an inordinate amount, I've over-indexed on analogies to try to convey difficult concepts to the business. I've tried to make sure that at an individual level, the folks know how to tell a story, not just present the data, but like to really provide the story, provide the insights. And then at a senior level, how does this play into what the business is trying to achieve? And it is something that I think we need to turn up the volume in terms of how critical that is. And the more senior you go, the more critical that becomes, right? So the more I talk about the what and the how. The what you do in terms of the skill sets, and the how you communicate, and the more strategic, the more important, the more value is placed on the how. And I don't think most people realize that. If you're going to progress like in a managerial or strategic side.
Yeah, key insight, the how. I mean, again, the what is important, and all of us are smart enough where we have a good grasp on the what, but to your point, making sure that we have a good grasp on the how, and we're sort of working towards that. That's critical. Well, it's fascinating, right? I mean, we continue this conversation. I could go all day. I'm sure you all have to get to the next session. We'll do a lightning round here, and Hallie, let me start with you, right? What's one piece of actionable advice that you would give everyone over here to making sure that they become the leadership version of themselves?
Yeah, I would say be well-rounded. I think we have to focus on developing the soft skills like we've talked about. I think we have to focus on knowing our business so that we know what skills are important and how we connect to those within our roles. And then we continue to develop our technical skills as well. So I think all three of those are equally important. I think it's important to focus on all of them as you grow in your career.
Very well put. Francis?
I still want to focus on collaboration and communication. Those are the two key pieces. Most of your projects are going to be across organization, across teams, and being able to work with multiple teams to build out one solution, that is key to getting these big projects implemented.
That's great. Yeah. Faizan, how about you? What do you think?
I know that we all have discussed being adept at technology and stuff, but one thing that I've found in my career as I've gone through is people look for collaboration. Because in the end, it all comes down to, can you get things done, right? Our customers, like if you are working at a company where you have a software, people don't really care about tech that much, but they do care about whether it solves their problems, and the way to solve problems at big companies or any company in industry is via collaboration. And I found that to be extremely effective. Everything else falls behind that.
Yeah, very well put. Asit, what do you think?
If you're trying to establish yourself as a data science leader, I guess, I would say focus on people. You need to really care about the careers of your team members, data scientists, and actively take interest in growing it. Second, what are the different processes and mechanisms that you establish that you make your organization efficient? You also need to think actively about it. And third thing is you need to break these silos amongst your organization and create a horizontal view so that your team members have a broader understanding of the business and the problems.
Very well put. Yeah. Colin,
I feel like they've said it all. Yeah, I mean, I think understanding what the business is trying to achieve is key. Understanding the team and remembering you are human and your team is human. And not being afraid to take on something that's difficult, something that you don't particularly want to take on, or even when things go wrong, right? I've learned more from sometimes those than anything else, and I think that's equally important as well.
That's great. Yeah, empathy and empowering others. I would leave you all with this. I really feel like, in addition to, what all of you all said, I really feel like figuring out what's next, right? And it's easier said than done, right? Where is my company going? Where's the business going? What are their pain points? Not their current pain points, but where are we going, and how do we apply technology to what's next, where the puck is going, metaphorically speaking, right? I think that has, in my career, that has been a key differentiator, because whenever I've gone into a room and had the conversation with folks around, what can we do for you next? It gets folks out of the mind of, hey, the day-to-day, and what's the vision that we need to build for the company. So I feel like that's been really helpful for me. And you all have been a great panel. This conversation has been very engaging and very exciting. Thank you so much, and hope you all enjoyed as well.